It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And
Hello.
And goodbye to Lagata the cat, who will now find another room and hang out for the rest of the show, because
What is that? She just starts hearing the theme song and off she goes?
no, it's when I turn on the mic and I do this, whatever it is I do here, and then she's just, okay, we're done. You're not. I don't know
Yeah.
who you are. I don't where's that guy I like? He's suddenly not there anymore. So oh well.
Wait, he's put his broadcast voice on. I'm leaving the room.
Exactly. It's the broadcast voice. It is the persona. Michael turns into Mike somehow, and
Mike at the mic. Yes.
Mike at the mic. Hey everybody, Mike at the mic. How you doing on a Friday? Leading
No, it's a Sunday.
all the way
Sunday.
into a Saturday and a Sunday. Yeah. Oh dear me.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday.
And how was your week, Peggy?
I don't even know where it went. It was just like,
Didn't you like publish a magazine
yes, the
this week?
December issue of Natural Awakening Chicago is at the printer as we speak. And so my head's in January already. Go figure. Holidays are done. It's
Wow.
January.
You're ahead of the game. You're the rest of us are just struggling to keep up and to figure out what's not going to be available at our local establishment, because they keep warning us that things won't be available. And Kathleen and I have been trying to anticipate what that might mean. We have no idea. But
So you make something else.
I think it was you, though, who I said the other day, we went into a store and there were some empty shelves, and you said, oh, marketing. They're doing that on purpose.
No, it wasn't me.
It wasn't you? All right. It was somebody else who
No, I think I was one mentioning there's a cranberry shortage. But
all right. And
whether there's actually a cranberry shortage or it's just not being delivered to the stores and it's marketing.
It could be. And that's something that our friend Bob Benson wrote about, the whole truth, he says, about cranberry sauce. Well, before we get to that and some other stories.
Who's joining us today, Mike?
We've got a really good show today. We're going to have some fun, but we're also going to get serious. And we're going to start by re-examining the situation at Bell Bowl Prairie, which those of you who have been following this, it's a story that it's not going to end for a while because nothing's been resolved, really.
It's just been delayed.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with the story and you don't follow us, basically there is a dry gravel prairie, remnant prairie, which means it's been around for thousands of years, and we have yet to pave it over. We've tried, but we haven't yet. It was actually used for Army exercises back during the Great War 100 years ago. And it's right next to Chicago Rockford International Airport. And a couple of years ago, the airport decided they were going to expand their operations because shipping stuff is now what we do in the world. I think it's the only thing America does anymore. We don't make anything. We just ship stuff around. We move stuff around, and we serve people, and we have a service industry, and that's kind of what our economy is based on. Although, we just popped in 600,000 new jobs. I'm not sure exactly where they went, but
Moving things around.
yeah, that was it. Moving things around. Well, Amazon is going to, they're going to blow through the entire population of the country. In a couple of years, all 340 million people will have worked at Amazon at least once. That's their business model. And then they spit them out, and maybe they take them back in. I don't know. At any
They
rate,
put them on SpaceX.
so there's Bell Bowl Prairie is right next to the airport, is in danger of being bulldozed over, basically, to expand the operations, the commercial
Or
operation.
bulldozed through and paved over.
Once the road goes through, it's going to be a
Yeah,
goner.
but that's what I'm saying. Bulldozed through and paved over.
Yeah. So
Paved paradise. Put up that parking lot.
so
Literally.
we've talked with folks out that way, and environmentalists and conservationists really only got wind of this in August of this year, even though the airport had been planning this for a couple of years at least, like 3 years now. And so there's an issue of transparency, as there always is with the big players, whether it's a municipality or an airport board or a city council in a suburb like Elmhurst, that we'll be talking about a little bit today, and our friend Nicole Virgil. Transparency is the first casualty in a situation where it involves preserving our natural resources or enabling people to make a better planet. Transparency is the first to go out the window. And in this case, it's following the due course of that. So we have talked to the folks there about this because once they found out this was going to happen, a lot of people mobilized, and it's really been amazing. We'll talk about this a little bit too. Amazing response in the environmental community and just concerned people who look at climate change and say, enough. We
We'll look at promises being made and then look at the reality and go, these don't match. Enough.
Right. There's a lot of stuff like that. And sometimes the promises aren't even made. It's just, this is we've decided we want this land and,
Yeah. No, I meant grandiose promises like coming out of global conferences.
COP26. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Or Chicago climate plans or
all of the stuff. Oh, yeah. That's right. We've got that. There's so many things on the list, and they're all tied together. That's the thing, whether it is Jackson Park and the Obamas, or it's the southeast side of Chicago and the toxic waste dump at the mouth of the Calumet River, or it's also on the southeast side, a metal scrap metal recycling plant that the neighborhood does not want, or it's
natural gas plants running through areas that they shouldn't be.
Or a prairie, a remnant prairie, fully 20% of the remnant prairie, dry gravel prairie left in the entire state that, it's going to be a
Gone in an afternoon.
casualty of economics. So we're going to talk today to Amy Dahl. She's the director of Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves. And we are also going to have the first ever on this show, the Botanizer, the Illinois Botanizer. And he is Chris Benda. He's a research botanist and instructor at Southern Illinois University. And we're going to examine the latest, because there was a board meeting this week. And some of the activists spoke to the board to explain
Airport board.
The airport board.
The
right?
airport.
What did I say? I'm sorry. The airport.
You just said a board meeting.
It doesn't matter. Just pick a board and go talk to them. The airport.
They're like
board.
talking to the wall sometimes too, probably.
Yeah. But Amy is one of the people who testified at the board meeting, the airport board meeting on Thursday, and we'll bring you up to speed on that, along with Chris Benda. As I said, I'm very excited because not only do we have it's the very first time we've had an Illinois botanizer on the show, and we'll explain what a botanizer is later on. We also have a snipologist on the program today. So we've got the botanizer and the snipologist. So ring them all, baby. And all I got to say about that is
blah, 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 blah.
Okay. No, it's great because Dan Kosta, who's a friend of the show, and we mention his name a lot because he watches us a lot, and he keeps me on the straight and narrow when I'm talking horticulture, because he works at Vern Goers Greenhouse in Hinsdales. I can say that almost. And
More coffee for you.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to do it now. I don't care. I'm thinking
Cheers.
I'm just going to cheers. Here we go. You folks wait while
Okay, everybody out there, this was your coffee break moment.
This is it. I hope you're all sipping right now. Here
hold up your coffee cup, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. I need some Baileys in here is what I need.
Wait, no, that's a December issue.
Oh, all right. You're right. We're getting to December. Oh my gosh, we've got the holidays coming up. So anyway, Dan is going to talk to us, speaking of holidays, about holiday plants and how not to kill them. I mean, let's be honest. Isn't that the goal? Is so few
how
of us
to enjoy them and how not to kill them. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be happening around 10 o'clock, and I've dragged Dan out of his comfort zone, and I've made him do the vmix thing here with
He's on video.
We tried to do it on his computer, but I think his computer's too old to handle it. So we've had to go to the device, and and we did a test earlier, and we did one last night, and I think we're good to go. And I'm very grateful to Dan because he has agreed to be a guinea pig here and talk to us about.
Jeannie Davis says if her plants live until January, she's good.
Well, see, and isn't that? Oh, and by the way, and Carrie Dale says Chris Benda is fantastic. So the botanizer is already getting good reports here. I'm glad to hear that.
And good morning, everybody that's watching live on the Save Bell Bowl Prairie Facebook group. Thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah, the folks are out there.
Because we are broadcasting live on that page right now.
And I'm sorry to make you wait till 9:30 for the discussion. So, if you want to grab that coffee and come back to see Amy and Chris.
Listen to us.
Or listen to us, blah, blah, blah,
Blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So I like the Greta clip there. That's my new favorite clip. I mean, because the other thing that you might do when watching us. Okay. Yes.
Okay. And by the way, you have to send me that one. I'll follow up with you after the show. I need that because I almost needed it this morning, but we're not talking about that. So yeah.
Oh, the screaming.
Yes.
The screaming marmot. This.
Yes. Yeah, I need the video clip for that.
I think there's a lot of people out there who would love to have that. You know what you do? You just load it on this thing, and if you're in a meeting or something and somebody's driving you crazy, you just hit the button. And then
hey, maybe that's the new ringtone on the phone.
That would be a great ringtone. I would like that. And then of course we're going to go to meteorologist Rick DiMaio, and you'll be happy to know that at some point during the show I will be loading in about 9 more images that I started. Well, they were okay. They were loaded in last night, and then we had a little issue just before the show, and I thought, like a lifeboat that's sinking, I decided to take out some of the pictures so that the lifeboat would not sink below the waves. And this would be the electronic lifeboat known as vmix. And vmix got up, but the pictures are still gone. So I have to put some of those back in there, which we will do. Paul.
And Paul says enough with the scream. Thanks, Paul.
No, that's Paul. No. The scream. It's the inner scream. It's within us all. We need that. It's sometimes even on a Sunday morning. But thank you
All
for
right.
thank you for watching, Paul. So Rick DiMaio will be here as well, and talk about should we hit him with the are we going to have a white Christmas question and watch his
No.
head explode? No, not
No.
yet. No, because isn't that what you do with
Let's wait till after Thanksgiving.
All right, after Thanksgiving, we will ask are we going to have a and I if I had to guess right now, I'd say no, but I'm not a meteorologist. I just play one on the radio. So see, and Jeannie says scream away. So there you go. It's to each his or her own. So at any rate, welcome to the show. Here's the cranberry story. Bob Benson.
Since Thanksgiving is coming up this week.
Right. And he, of course, is the local food forum. And you can go
He's on the show every couple months. We have him on bringing us up to speed on local food and farmers markets.
Go to localfoodforum.substack.com and you will find his writing. He says, I may as well get right to the point. I'm a whole cranberry sauce guy of long standing. I don't remember exactly when whole berry sauce began to be marketed widely, but I remember some spirited debates with a colleague 35 or so years ago in which I argued the whole berry case against his insistence that it isn't Thanksgiving unless you have jellied sauce with the can's product code stamped visibly on the end. And that takes
which we all grew up with.
That's boy, oh boy, and that the sound of it going as it comes out of the can. That was Thanksgiving, folks. That is Thanksgiving. I have to tell you that Kathleen's brother Paul, Paul's wife Jan, makes this incredible cranberry ice. And you said you want the recipe for that. And Paul, does Jan give out that recipe? Because I know he's watching the show. Let us know, because Peggy wants it, and it is to die for. It is lovely. On the other hand, you don't get that sound as it comes out of the can.
There's definitely no can marks on it.
That's right. It's the can shape, the marks on there. And as you said, it makes it much easier to put on a sandwich because you just slice the jelly or whatever they call it. But
short of heating it up, it never loses its shape.
So at any rate, if you go to localfoodforum.substack.com, he has his own recipe, Bob Benson, for cranberries.
And Bob's quite the chef too. So
yeah. So I thought, since we're I won't even use the word lurching, but we're lurching towards the holiday. We thought there's two types of people in the world: those who want it out of the can, and those who want something a little fancier. Right? Is that how that works? What are you looking?
Something like that. I'm looking for the link. I'm looking for the link.
Oh, okay.
There we are. The whole truth about cranberry sauce. There we go.
Right. So that takes us to, I mentioned a little earlier, Nicole Virgil, who is our friend who lives in Elmhurst, Illinois. And she's the one who got, she's if you can find her cause at Right to Garden. There's a Facebook page, Right to Garden. There's, I believe, still a website, and I don't know if it's righttogarden.org or .com. I think it's .com.
Yeah, but we've had her on the program probably at least 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
talking about her ongoing issues with the city of Elmhurst and putting up a hoop house to grow food for her family in her backyard.
Hmm. And by the way, it is
And
righttogarden.com.
.com. Yeah, I was trying
Uh,
to. Here it is.
yeah. And
Well, I'm copying and pasting that.
so if you follow that, what happened basically, like in 2015, she put up this hoop house so that her family of four, could grow vegetables all winter long. Um, and it's stunning construction, really well done. Beautiful, 9 feet tall, and I forget exactly how wide and long. And very successful. Successfully, they grew veggies over the winter. As you know, growing veggies over the winter is problematic in these climes. Basically, they're in stasis. You get them started, and then they're not going to grow very much because they don't get enough light, but they won't die. And you can continue to harvest them over the winter.
And some crops will grow in a hoop house nicely over the winter.
Yeah,
Lettuces and things.
Sure, exactly. So the city of Elmhurst decided they didn't like this. Somebody did. Somebody filed a complaint. It's usually one person. It's like one cranky person says, "Not in my neighborhood, not in my backyard." Of course, it wasn't in their backyard. It was in the Virgil's backyard. But the city made them take it down, and so they started negotiating with the city. Say, well, what do you want? I mean, this is why are you doing this? It's not hurting anybody. We're just growing food, and the city refused to back down, and refused to back down, and refused to back down. And so this year, for the past couple of years, Nicole took it to the Illinois General Assembly. And guess what? This year, they passed a right to garden. It's not called the right to garden. I forget exactly what the name of the bill is. But it's basically a right to garden bill. It passed the General Assembly and was signed by Governor Pritzker.
Signed into law.
End of
For
story,
the whole
right?
state, not just Elmhurst, the whole state. Yes.
Yeah, for anybody in the state. So, it is not the end of story, because now the city decided, well, we'll tell you exactly what size these hoop houses can be now, and what they want is 120 square feet. And they're allowing them to be 9 feet tall, but 120 square feet as if you garden. I measured it. Basically, it's the size of my kitchen. All right. So imagine a garden the size, and I have a small kitchen. So that would be the size of the garden they're allowing in Elmhurst. At least they proposed in the city council. And so Nicole has taken it up again with the city council, and she wants to convince them to make it 400 square feet, which is really not that big, and would be sort of a minimum to successfully grow crops over the winter in a hoop house. And she started a writing campaign to the city of Elmhurst city council, and you can go to Right to Garden on Facebook and find the petition, find where you can send a letter. And she wants letters in support, and she's gotten dozens of them. In fact, she told me that not one is argued with her idea of expanding it from 120 square feet to something larger. She proposes 400. And so she went to city council last Tuesday, I believe.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
And I think it was on their agenda. Says she sat for 3 hours and it never came up. They never brought it up. So, 3 hours plus, probably more like 4 or 5 hours that she's not going to get back in her life. And nothing was resolved. And the city, what I told her is that, good, now it's a chance for you to get hundreds and maybe thousands of letters sent to the city of Elmhurst. So this battle is not over.
Nope.
It is not over. And when there is some kind of resolution, she has agreed to be back on the show, and we will talk about it. But that's sort of that situation, and that's discouraging because a lot of us who want to grow food in our backyard thought this was done in the state of Illinois. At least not in the city of Elmhurst. So, and you had a couple of things there. I'm going to look at my list. It's a list. We've only got a couple more minutes.
And there's one that I had sent to you and you said you saw.
Yeah.
The Chicago Tribune had an article this week, and I don't have it open here, but it's basically talking about how so many restaurants are now, fast food places especially, are looking to put in triple and quadruple drive-through lanes for people to just be able to come in, not use the dining room, pick up their food and leave. And I think there's a Portillo's that's even going to be opening in Joliet with no dining room, all drive-through. And yep, there's good and bad. And that first couple things that hit me was, wow, look at all that extra paved over surface.
Yep.
Although, all that extra parking lot.
But to start, you have to have some sympathy with food establishments.
Yeah.
It's during the pandemic, it's been tough, and it still is tough because we have a mask mandate in Illinois, and other states have it, and lots of establishments did not make it through. I have to admit, when I saw the article, and I've got the Trib article up here, it's they mentioned Culver's as one, and there are some people say, "What?" Yeah, okay. Culver's started introducing 2-lane drive-throughs last year, though decisions on whether individual restaurants build them are up to franchise owners. It's part of their broader focus on keeping up with the pandemic boom in to-go dining that continues to outpace growth in dine-in sales. Okay. Yeah, because people, they
don't want to.
You won't find me in a restaurant. I'm sorry, and I apologize to people who are running restaurants, but you know where I stand on that. I'm still trying to be careful here.
But some of this ties back into what we were just saying with Nicole, to be able to grow your own food as well.
What do you mean? I'm sorry. You mean, I'm not sure.
And cook at home.
And cook at home. Well,
and not be doing takeout constantly, because as Bruce also posts, look at all that extra packaging, all that extra everything. It's a whole interwoven cycle of health concerns, of packaging, of paving, of driving, of this.
Packaging and the energy expended to deliver everything. We have now become just order it and have it show up on your porch kind of society.
Via Amazon, via airports, via Gee, there's a tie-in.
Yeah. So, but I have to admit, and I sympathize with the restaurant owners and employees, managers, as I sympathize with people in the entertainment world. I have a lot
of the Frozen Robins,
but I'm thinking people I know in theater who are just starting to open up theaters in the last few months, and seeing how that works. It's a tough world out there for that.
So how do we remake this rhetorical question? How do we remake some of those types of businesses so that they are more efficient?
Well,
rhetorical question.
I don't know, because we're getting away from the idea of less packaging as we go into this new realm. I had to upgrade my phone, which I did this week, and that was an adventure as well, because suddenly for another show, but for about 3 days I had no internet connection unless I was at home. Now you know how well that works with a cell phone.
Yeah, and you had a voicemail that was a head scratcher.
Yeah, that. But the point is, they sent us new SIM cards in a box like this with plastic in it and a SIM card that is that big. And I thought, that's nuts. What are you protecting here? Because the SIM card itself was in a cardboard card that you open up and you remove the SIM card. That kind of stuff that makes us all a little crazy. I mean, in the last week we talked about bottle recycling as well. The idea, as I was listening to the show again, I thought, I wish I had hammered home a little more. These are bottles we're talking about. It's hard to recycle a bottle sometimes in America now and the world.
Yep.
All right. There's a lot more on.
Just the bigger point being it all ties in together to the same themes.
Yeah. And I guess that is the whole point. And that's the point of this show, is that whether you're talking about dredging toxic materials and piling it up in a park, what should be a park on the mouth of the Calumet River, or you're bulldozing a prairie, or you're putting too much packaging together, it's all related to climate change. And if you continue to do that, it's all
Blah, 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 blah.
And we have to get out of that mindset, I guess, somehow. Okay. Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We need to have that discussion about Bell Bowl Prairie with our two guests, and we will do that right after this. From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star also offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks and great techniques at blazing-star.com.
And now for something completely different.
Oh, holy night, late December back in 1 BC, 'twas the night of the nativity. What a baby, what a night.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm.
So you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town. Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You'll go down in history. They loved him, yeah, yeah, yeah. They loved him, yeah, yeah, yeah. They loved him, yeah, 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 yeah.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. And there are the guests that I referred to earlier. On your left in the bottom of the screen, Amy Dahl, the director of Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves. Amy, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And the guy on the right is the Illinois Botanizer himself, Chris Benda. He's a research botanist and instructor at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Welcome to Chris. You got the tie on. What to what do I owe this honor?
It even has flowers on it.
Wow.
Oh, let's take a look at that. In fact, let me get this out of the way so we can see. Look at that. All right, and you've even got the fisheye lens on your on your computer camera there, which is great. I love the deal here. So, explain to our audience very briefly before we get into this conversation, what is a botanizer, Chris?
Well, it's one who botanizes. So botany being looking at plants.
Okay. You know, I just love the phrase. And as I mentioned before, it's the very first time on our show that we will have a botanizer and a snipologist on the same show. Amy, let's start this. There's a lot going on, and we've got 25 minutes here, and we'll never get to all of it. But that's okay because there's right now a lot being written about this. Folks are talking about this. If you just go to Save Bell Bowl Prairie.org and look at everything, you can do a timeline. You can look at all the media coverage on this, and I'm pleased to say that a couple of our shows are also posted up there, and I hope this one is too. It's quite a groundswell from beginnings in August when this sort of leaked out that this prairie that had been managed by the Natural Land Institute for decades might not exist as of November 1st. I mean, we're past the point where it was supposed to be bulldozed, but that groundswell of support for the prairie has been nothing short of remarkable, hasn't it, Amy?
It has been really remarkable how many people across, it's not just a Rockford or Winnebago County initiative, that it was people across the state and eventually people across the country that stepped up and said, we care about this. And I think you and Peggy talked about this. This is about more than 5 acres or 14 acres or just a small acreage of prairie, but this is about our biodiversity resources, and it's about climate change and the environment, and people care about this and are paying attention.
I think one of the most important things I've read, and I've linked to it on my blog, is another blog post by noted Illinois naturalist Stephen Packard. That's
excellent post.
It's anybody has a chance.
I'm going to post the link right now. Too.
Okay, great. So folks watching this can look at it. In fact, you alerted me to that, Amy. So thank you for that. He raises probably the most interesting question of all for moving forward, which is, how did this happen? How was this allowed to happen? How did this fly under the radar? So that
for so long,
for at least a couple of years, so that folks.
And where else is it happening? He raises that question too.
Right. So so, what other areas are we going to have to scramble to protect? So, Amy, I thought that was a stunning revelation to read that and say we can't let this happen again. And that's where Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves comes in, doesn't it?
To an extent, I think Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, along with other caring people who care about their natural areas in their part of the state, this happens when people aren't paying attention and when people aren't connected to those natural areas, and so when a group of people are caring about it, and that's how it was recognized and saved. People in the community showed up and said, wait, there are bulldozers here and we need to do something about it. And they stepped up. But when people are paying attention to their natural areas, and that involves paying attention to what's happening on the ground, but also paying attention to your local politics and the local government agencies and landowners and being connected to that. And I think that's one of the things that as many of us have been kind of taking a look at how this happens and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. We in conservation are really good at, we love to be in our natural areas, but sometimes the government processes and the development processes can be overwhelming and can be frustrating. And the public notice processes are not really they're not exciting, and sometimes in this case they were kind of hidden. People didn't know there was a process for a public notice set a few years ago, but people didn't get that notice or didn't see that notice, and we need to figure out how to get government to work better, and how to get conservationists to care about all parts of the conservation field.
And the notices also aren't always the clearest. There's no, something's XYZ is happening, but there's nothing that's saying, and here's how it's going to affect you, your community, your neighborhood, the environment. It's just blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. In the case of Bell Bowl Prairie, there's an update to their master plan that goes back as far as 2008. That the airport board adopted, and Paul Cicero in his letter talked about the fact that this expansion plan is built upon work for many years and many decades of previous airport boards, their plans. But where was the talk in 2008 about what the impact would be to this remnant prairie? And it's really hard to say, and nobody seemed to have known in 2008 or in 2018.
Yeah, and one of the things the airport authority is saying, hey, we did everything right. We did it all by the book. What are you so upset about? Where were you? And other people have said that, including some environmental leaders. Where were you? But as Peggy and you have alluded to, these notices often sneak by in a paper. They're not highlighted. Nobody's putting them into context, as Peggy mentioned. And suddenly, you're 2 years down the road, and there are bulldozers sitting on the edge of a prairie. And in fact, parts of it already did get bulldozed, as Stephen Packard, about 10 acres. Not of the most valuable part of the prairie, but other parts of the prairie.
And Mike, if I may,
yes,
Steve Packard also says in his blog, that Fish and Wildlife Service and Department of Natural Resources knew about this plan. Like you said, it was several years in the making. And so we need to understand why our conservation organizations aren't sounding the alarm, or at least being active at talking about this. So some biologists, some people within these agencies knew about this well before the bulldozers were lined up. And what, like he says at the end of his blog, why the conservationists sometimes feel like they need to keep their mouth shut, or it's political if they are to advocate for their expertise, the things that they believe in and that they work on. And so I think that's a strong point to make going forward too.
And the other thing I don't know if it's a question we can really discuss here, but when the statements come out, such as happened here and as we've seen in many other things, no environmental impact, which was some of the things that I think, was that Fish and Wildlife that said it, or DNR, or I'm not sure who said it in one of the statements, but there's no environmental impact.
Yeah, okay, that's where we got to go to Chris.
So there's no red flag going up.
Right, the Botanizer. Chris, explain how that could possibly have been the case.
Part of the issue is that we have some level of protection, or at least awareness on particular plants and animals, but we don't recognize ecosystems. We don't really recognize high quality habitat. And so we need to have a system that treats a grade A or B, gravel prairie the same way it treats the rusty patch bumblebee or the other rare plants that occur there. So we're just kind of seeing things differently as far as the regulatory process. And I suggest that we treat high quality natural communities as a distinct entity that needs to be monitored and protected throughout time.
You mentioned the letter, Amy, that came out this week. Let's go back and talk a little bit about what's happening. There was a board meeting that you testified at, or gave comments at, however you want to put it, and then a letter that you alluded to. Can you talk about both of those just a little bit?
Sure. Paul Cicero, who is the chair of the Airport Authority Board, he had a letter, an opinion piece in the Rockford paper, and it was interesting. He never mentioned directly Bell Bowl Prairie or any of the prairie. But the letter really talked about how important this expansion project is in the Rockford community, and to the region. And we've talked about it, that cargo, this airport is a huge cargo airport. The number of flights that are coming in delivering cargo are very important to our region, and then he went on to talk about how this airport expansion will mean jobs, which means reducing poverty, which reduces crime and drug use in the Rockford area, and talks about the role of them being humanists and prioritizing human life. So the response to that, and as I told the airport board when we met, a few of us got to give public comment at their meeting on Thursday, that conservationists agree with much of what he's saying. We agree that this airport expansion is necessary. We agree that it's important. We agree that having more jobs is important in the Rockford community, and we agree that this airport is a precious resource. Also, we agree on almost everything except for the fact that this expansion means they have to destroy the prairie.
Yeah.
So
well, one of the things I was going to say is that you do realize that not mentioning the prairie by name is a strategy. It's a tactic. Mm-hmm. Because it means it lowers the value of it. So you speak in generalities, and it concerned me a little bit that even the governor did not, from what I understand, say Bell Bowl Prairie, the words Bell Bowl Prairie. Did he at his
or even the word prairie?
No, he said, I believe that as we fight for our climate, our environment, that we can also do so. We can also do so while creating jobs that we don't need to have a trade-off here. So this is an allusion to the issue, but he didn't directly.
A-L-L.
Right. A-L-L.
Not illusion.
Right.
It's allusion.
Allusion to it. That's what other politicians have not said the words Bell Bowl Prairie
no one's
either.
saying anything.
And that's disturbing to me that this battle is being fought. It's it's not an equal battle. It's what's the word when it and I can't come, it won't come into my head right now. It'll come to me. But this is part of what you're facing as well. So tell me, Amy, what is it you told the folks at the airport board on Thursday?
So I told the board that, again, that we agree with much of what Paul Cicero wrote. We just disagree that the prairie needs to be destroyed to do it. And tried to explain very briefly, again, you only get 3 minutes in public comment, but that this prairie is only a fraction of their 3,000 acre site. And it's also a resource, just like the airport is. And that I also pointed out that conservationists also prioritize people. It's not just the airport board that think that people are also important. And I think that was a big part of what the airport's kind of position is that, these conservationists don't care about people, they only care about bees and plants. And that's not the case at all. And then I also pointed out that the laws and government don't always work perfectly, and I think that we're seeing that in this example. But it doesn't mean mm-hmm. that we shouldn't be taking a step back and doing this the right way. And I also acknowledged when I spoke to the airport board that an 11th hour redesign, as we're calling this, is not optimal, and that designing airports is complicated, and we sympathize. And but we also think that this can be done better. And I made it clear, well, I don't know if I made it clear. I stated the fact that this isn't an us versus them mm-hmm. problem. That's not the situation we're in. They want to make it an us versus them, but that's not the position that those of us who are advocating for the prairie want to be in. We want to work with the airport. This movement rallied thousands and thousands of people across the state to advocate for saving the prairie, and those people are willing to step up and also advocate for helping the airport come up with a better design and to find funding for it, and to advocate for funding as well, because we fully recognize that a redesign will cost money, and that's part of the challenge of this situation.
And one of the people involved in this who has been on this show is Domenico D'Alessandro, who continues to do things like this, propose design changes, and he's doing this on his own time as a volunteer. These are not etched in stone, but look, he takes that one and he says, well, we could use that as a design, and he's looking at grand plans to put a state park in the area. Here's a slightly different design that he came up with, and he's a fan of of transparency, of having this process be open. As you say, this is very difficult, Amy. You can't have you can't just design an airport on the back of an envelope and submit it. So I want to get to you, Chris, about the context of this situation and the state of our natural lands in Illinois, because that's basically your beat and what you cover. What does it mean to lose fully a quarter of dry gravel prairie in Illinois?
Well, what's interesting is that you can consider all of the natural communities that are the remnants that remain in Illinois, and just 0.07% remain. So whether you're talking about a wetland or a forest or a prairie, we've reduced the amount that is in a high natural condition to a tiny little piece. So prairies of that are, an even smaller portion. And the dry gravel prairie is not a common community type in Illinois. So, most of the farmland was on black soil prairie. Gravel doesn't make very good farmland, obviously. A lot of the gravel prairies were mined, of course. So they were used in that way. But, that's some of the reason why they were set aside, or at least never fully developed, because there wasn't a lot of value for development on them. Of course, building a road, you do that wherever you want. So we have less than 200 acres of dry gravel prairie in the state. And so 5 high quality acres of that is a significant piece. And I would argue that all the natural community remnants that are in a high quality condition today need to be preserved, because we have literally so little amount remaining.
And we don't know what's in there. We don't know, and once it's gone, it's gone.
So let's get to the another development that happened this week, Amy, which is the legal implications of this, and a letter that of 60-day notice of violations of the Endangered Species Act relating to the airport expansion. Can you explain what that was?
Yeah, so the attorneys that are representing NLI, the Natural Land Institute, have presented the Assistant United States Attorney with a notice of intent, basically to sue. They provided a 60-day notice of the violations to the Endangered Species Act relating to Bell Bowl Prairie. And that was delivered to the U.S. Department of Department of Transportation, the FAA, the U.S. Department of the Interior, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Basically, the short version of that is that for their failure to protect Bell Bowl Prairie and their failure to protect the habitat of the rusty patch bumblebee, and so that was presented. I believe, if it's not up already, that NOI notice will be up on the Save Bell Bowl Prairie website, so that people can take a look at that as well. But it really kind of lays out there that the federal defendants knew and know that the rusty patch bumblebee is there, and they are failing to protect it.
Yeah, and it is posted right now, by the way.
And it
is posted already. So
posted where, Peggy?
On SaveBellBowlPrairie.org.
Okay.
I'll put that link up.
There was also a letter from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and it seems to me that that is just a kind of
That's
an advice.
disturbing.
Well, it does seem to indicate that if the board so chooses, the airport board, they've got a get out of jail free card, which is a certain process where you can bypass it's incidental taking of species. You're nodding, Chris. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that you can apply for a permit that says you can kill some animals, basically, in your process.
Okay.
So it is a get out of jail free card to say, okay, well, we have these rules. We really don't want you to impact the resource, but if you do, just make sure you get some paperwork filled out in advance.
Yeah, make sure it's official.
And so that letter that came out from the IDNR to the FAA, Amy, that was just sort of an advisory letter, right? It doesn't really, it's not as if they're asking for anything in particular.
So it seems that the IDNR, they've done what they've called reopened consultation, where they take a look at the impact of the project, and then they have a consultation process, and they provide information. And this consultation letter was sent to the FAA. So this is their impression of what will be the impact to the endangered plants and animals. And they do refer to Bell Bowl Prairie in their letter. But I think as Chris talked about before, this is one of the complicating factors is that the IDNR doesn't appear to have legal authority to protect this natural community and this ecosystem. They can provide information, and it's public information, and they're providing information to the FAA and to the airport authority, but it doesn't legally protect anything. It just provides them with information.
But as Stephen Packard writes, they have a lot of influence. All right,
Exactly.
Just as politicians have a lot of, we have two senators, one of whom we heard nothing from apparently, and the other who's kind of dancing around it. And Governor Pritzker is speaking in governor speak about the issue. So these people all have a lot of influence in this, don't they?
It's one of the interesting things that I think a few of us have talked about in the last couple of weeks, that some of these people and organizations and agencies have said, we don't have any power to do anything about this. And I think what they're confusing is legal authority with power. They may not have the legal authority. The law may not allow them to stop this or to do anything about it. But that doesn't mean that they don't have power. And as you put it, as they have influence, and that is power that they have to do something. It's
another jargon is political will. It's you can get a lot accomplished if you have political will. I keep talking about that on the south side of Chicago. If the mayor of Chicago decided that we're going to turn this toxic dump into a park, it'll happen. End of story. Right there.
And that's a good point, Mike, is that we should remind people that this is public land. You know, there's some people who may sympathize with the government's not going to tell me what to do on my land sort of attitude, but this is land that we all own, and that these directors are appointed and they get to make the decision, but they're going to move on, and we're all going to have to live with the consequences on land that is ours collectively.
That's a really good point, because that keeps coming up in various places on the Facebook page as people go back and forth about this. And the issue is, who owns this land? Who gets to make the decisions ultimately about
whose tax dollars go toward it?
Right. And is it
all of ours?
Mm-hmm.
So many of if you look at where their funding is coming from, yes, they levy taxes on Winnebago County residents. The Greater Rockford Airport Authority owns the land, and they levy taxes on Winnebago County residents. But many of their projects are funded with state and federal grant funds, which means every one of us are paying that pay taxes are contributing to this expansion project. And that means ultimately, if they destroy the prairie, they used our tax dollars to do it.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes here, and one of the things that's yes, Peggy.
And I want to make sure that we also talk about how people can help with legal fees.
Yes. That's good, because this is not cheap to hire lawyers to defend a valuable, let me say priceless remnant, prairie remnant. I put this on my blog
And I
post,
just put the link up now too.
which is you started a GoFundMe page, Amy, that I think people should contribute to. Tell us about that a little bit.
So there is a GoFundMe page because there are legal fees. Natural Land Institute has retained the attorneys, but they are doing that on behalf of many organizations that and individuals that really want to make sure that this prairie is safe. But they are incurring fees, and so many of us are partnering together to raise funds. So there's a GoFundMe, and I'm sure you have shared the link, but it's on the SaveBellBowlPrairie.org website where people can contribute towards the cost of the legal fees for the actions that are being taken.
And what I'm going to do is it is in my blog post, but I'm also going to post it separately on my Facebook page and on the Twitter account so that folks can jump in and help out. All right, so that leaves us with where we go in the future. Obviously, we have to pay for legal fees because it might ultimately end up in the courts. Meanwhile, though, folks can't get to the prairie. It has been pretty much cordoned off, hasn't it? And Chris, what does that mean in terms of keeping the prairie maintained?
Well, it's going to be hard to do anything if nobody's allowed to access the property. And I assume people are able to maybe look through binoculars and see that if there's, any encroachment that has already occurred.
Or erosion.
But not only that, but it's really shutting people out of the process too. You talked about earlier about that nobody knew about this. The Natural Land Institute should, or what I wanted to say was Amy said about how nobody thinks an 11th hour redesign is optimal. Well, the Natural Land Institute should have been brought in on the conversations long ago, and so we need to have this transparency and openness, and including visiting the prairie. I was up there and spoke on behalf of the prairie at a rally, and I stopped by. I wanted to see the site. I've never seen it, and I saw the authorities there, and I didn't approach them. I'd heard that they weren't letting people, so I thought I'd check it out, and I didn't go. And I would really like to see this site as an ecologist in Illinois who works very closely with these landscapes. If I could make another point, I want to say that we cannot build these ecosystems. We think about, we send a human to the moon, and we've done all these amazing things. We have a computer that exists in your pocket. It's amazing. We cannot build a prairie again. But and also we have spent lots of time and energy and money trying to build these back to at least the best that we can do. And I want to highlight Nachusa Grasslands as a site that is fairly large, where they've done that to the best of their ability, millions of dollars, lots of years, lots of hours by volunteers to do the best we can, and it is not the same thing. So you can go out in Nachusa Grasslands and you can see there's a couple little areas that are named after Doug and Dot Wade, and they don't look like the rest of the prairie there. Now, it's a little bit to the trained eye because you have to understand the plant species that you're seeing, but a high-quality, intact prairie ecosystem is not the same as an old field or a roadside or a place where grass is allowed to grow. And I think that's also part of the problem, is that the general public doesn't understand what a natural area is, what a high-quality natural remnant is. And those are some of the things that myself and a lot of people that I work with are trying to change. We need people to understand really the value and quality and how to recognize these truly precious areas that remain.
And Peggy just sent me a graphic that we might use to...
which is from the Save Bell Bowl Prairie Instagram page.
Okay. Here's the Illinois Prairie on the left side in the early 1800s, and on the right side, what we have today. And
there's a tiny red dot if you look carefully.
If that doesn't explain it to people, I don't know how else we can possibly explain it to folks. Before we go, though, Amy, again, all of this raises the question, are you going to be able to sit at the table? It doesn't look as though the airport authority wants any environmentalists there. They'll talk to the DNR, they'll talk to the FAA, they'll talk to DOT, but they won't talk to the Natural Land Institute or Illinois Environmental Council or your organization, Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves. How are you going to get at the table?
I think we're going to just keep asking and keep asking. I think that public pressure. So they have a design. I mean, they have a design team and they have architects and engineers that also know how to do this as well. They don't need Domenico or Natural Land Institute or Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves. They have a design team that just their client needs to tell them that this is what they want, is a design that saves the prairie, and their design team will make happen. If they don't, I think we need to. They have said that they are not interested in at this time. Their lawyers got back to the Natural Land Institute lawyers and said at this time they don't want to sit down with any environmentalist design options. But
that
doesn't
mind-boggling. I don't understand that. I don't understand why, and it appears this way. And I don't. You're not describing it this way. I am. It looks like they're stonewalling. And that that is the strategy. We're just going to say no, 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 and then come March, okay, fire up the bulldozers. It kind of looks that way, and I know people are trying to be open and say, let's all work together, let's kumbaya this, and I don't see that happening. In fact, we still don't have a plan. We haven't seen the ultimate plan from the airport for the construction, have we?
I don't think that we have. We keep asking for what the plan is, and so we did get just late on Friday their 2008 up. There was a master plan update that was done in 2008, but that doesn't seem to be the plan that they're following now. So I think we've seen bits and pieces of the plan, but I don't think we've seen the full plan. Yeah. And I think one of the speakers, Tyler Smith, at the board meeting on Thursday evening said, this is not how good government and good boardsmanship works. Yeah. When you need to be transparent and communicate.
They're just going la 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 la. That's what they're doing.
And the lack of transparency is frustrating for everyone else involved in this. All right, we've gone way over into the next hour. Thank you so much, Amy Dahl from Friends of the Illinois Nature Preserves and Illinois Botanizer, Chris Benda. I would love to have you guys back on the show sometime. This is not done. Again, it's like I keep saying, in all these issues, they never end. They go on and on and on. Yes?
This issue, where else is it happening? What else do we need to know about? You know, it's the whole broader conversation that we need to have with you guys too.
Go to savebellbowlprairie.org for the latest information. It's a really good website, very well designed. You had a hand in that, Amy, I know. And also donate to the GoFundMe, which you can find at savebellbowlprairie.org. You can also find it on my blog post at mikenovak.net. Amy and Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, it's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We've got the Snipologist next.
Hey, good afternoon, Dr. Drew. How are you?
Good, Vic. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, I was just walking through the woods and I saw this burrow up here and it just got me to thinking I don't really know what these are exactly and why they happen. So can you tell me anything about tree burrows?
Yeah, so tree burrows are just sort of a lump of abnormal growth that occur on the trunks of trees. And it is really just a form of hyperplasia, which is just unchecked cellular division and growth. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of analogous to a tumor.
Oh, okay. Tumor, I understand. You kind of lost me at hyperplasia. But what is the cause of the formation of these burrows?
Well, there's several different things that could cause them. In some cases, like a tumor, they're just a genetic mutation or abnormality. In other cases, they're caused by pathogens like bacteria, fungi, viruses, or even maybe an insect pest.
So are these burrows harmful for the trees?
Well, from a health perspective, not usually. It really depends on the size and how much of the trunk is involved because there is functional vasculature in there.
And what about from a structural standpoint?
Well, that's a tricky question and really needs to be inspected on a case-by-case basis. So if there is a burrow on a tree trunk, then it really needs to be inspected by an arborist to make that determination.
Okay, so
On the viruses or even maybe an insect pest.
So are these burrows harmful for the trees?
Well, from a health perspective, not usually. It really depends on the size and how much of the trunk is involved because there is functional vasculature in there.
And what about from a structural standpoint?
Well, that's a tricky question and really needs to be inspected on a case-by-case basis. So if there is a burrow on a tree trunk, then it really needs to be inspected by an arborist to make that determination.
Okay, so what's the biggest tree burrow you've ever seen?
Well, you know, in the coast redwood forest, especially the old growth, they get pretty big, and I've seen one the size of my Subaru Outback before.
Wow, that's fantastic. That must be a sight to see. Drew, I want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And as always, thanks for being a resource for our arborists here at Bartlett Tree Experts.
My pleasure. Call back anytime.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, root, bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can do.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki while I adjust my camera and we look at snipologist Dan Kosta. And let me apologize to Bartlett Tree Experts.
What happened there?
I hit a button. It's like I got to stop hitting buttons, you know, and suddenly it had popped to our screen. And I went, that's not right. Let's go back to the commercial. Well, so we did a.
Folks missed it the first time, you know.
That's right. And I wasn't sure exactly where to pop back in, but that's what it was. Wow, look at the light coming and going at Dan Kosta's place.
I have no idea why that's doing that.
We'll figure it out by Christmas. But Dan, of course, works at Vern Goers Greenhouse in Hinsdale, Illinois. It's great to have you with us. You're usually just commenting and correcting me, and that's okay. I appreciate it anytime. But we wanted to talk a little bit this morning about the plants that people are going to have in their homes for the holidays. I want to show you, in fact, I should pop up a different screen. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to pop this screen up. Here we go. And bring this down just a little bit. And look what I've got behind me. This is the surprise I was telling you about, Peggy.
Ooh.
This came from, look at this. This guy is just, and I've even got the snowman in there.
That's a Thanksgiving cactus.
Well, we're going to find that out. Is it a Thanksgiving cactus? Let's get a bloom out there so we can see.
Yes, that is a Thanksgiving cactus.
That is. Okay, so why is it a Thanksgiving cactus, Dan?
Well, you can tell them apart easily because on the leaf segments of yours, there's like little horns on there.
Yep.
And the true Christmas cactus does not have that. They're more oval leaf segments.
Okay.
And also the true Christmas cactus, well, the Thanksgiving cactus you can get in, like pink, white, red, gold colors. But the true Christmas cactus only comes in pink. There's no other color.
And unfortunately, this is mine with no blooms.
Well, see,
yes. There's a lot of that.
Well, and why is that, Dan? Now, I'll tell you what I did, which is, and I got that from a listener and a viewer, Nancy Bender, who's a big fan of the show, and we love her as well. And she was helping move something out of somebody's house, and she said, "You want a Christmas cactus?" And I said, "Yeah." Now, she didn't tell me it was a Thanksgiving cactus, but I said, "Yeah." And so I got it during the pandemic in the middle of last year in the summer. And this past winter, I didn't do anything with it, but this summer, 2021, I put it out in the back porch for the summer. And Margaret says hers is blooming, so good for you, Margaret. And what I did is, because I looked up what you do, it's about light and temperature, right, Dan?
Yeah, both. Either one can trigger it.
And so,
Either they need short days and long nights, like a poinsettia does, or a good chilling can also set them into flowering. That's what they do down in Florida, where they really don't regulate the light that much.
mm-hmm.
And they ship a lot of plants around the country to the nurseries. So they chill the cactus down and leave it on the dry side too. And then basically it scares the plant. It thinks it's going to die. And so it
I can't believe
has
we
to
do that
what
to
its
plants.
lifespan is, which is to produce seed. And so it produces flowers so it can produce seed and continue the species.
Right, and so what I did a little of both, a little of all three, actually. I left it out on the porch for a pretty long time. As temperatures started to cool, however, I brought it indoors into a room just off to my right here. That doesn't, I never turn on a light on in there. It does have an open door, so what I did is I put one of these banners you see behind me in front of the plant so that the light was blocked, the light that keeps going on in the kitchen when we turn on the kitchen. So it stayed in darkness for a couple of months, and I stopped watering it. I think I watered it once in 2 months just to make sure that there was some moisture in there, and I held back. And then, lo and behold, I look, and that room, by the way, stays pretty cold. Our temps in our house in the winter, we keep a pretty constant 63 during the day. So
that's chilly enough to trigger flowering.
I would think so. So it was in the dark. I withheld the water. We had chilly temperatures, and then boom, I see all these buds on there, and I was excited. I thought, yay, I did it right. How about that, huh?
You get it.
Yeah, you got it blooming.
I got it blooming. So that's how you can get your.
So is it too late for somebody who wanted to get their plant blooming? Do they need to do this in the fall?
Too late to get it to bloom for Christmas, but
will it still
bloom for Valentine's
It'll
Day?
still bloom.
Yeah.
So it will
it'll still bloom. Just won't hit Christmas Day. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can still do it. Well, it's like, let's go to Amaryllis.
Yeah. Nice to have all the blooming in past the season, in February.
Now, as Dan and I both know, if you have an Amaryllis, you do not have an Amaryllis.
No. Most likely.
No, probably, I'd say 99% likely you do not have an Amaryllis.
Yeah.
Because there's only one species of Amaryllis in the world.
That's why I said most likely you don't.
Right. But what you really have is a hippeastrum. And as you said, Dan, that is what? The backside of
that is the backside of a hippie.
Right. Okay. There we go. But
yes, I have a sick sense of humor.
That's right. The Snipologist tools are out. Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, the reason we call Dan a snipologist is not nefarious. It's this. Okay. This is one of his bonsai. He is very good at this. In fact, he is the keeper of my very own bonsai, which is not pictured here.
And Dan's with the Prairie State Bonsai Society.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If
you would have let me know about a week ago, before I put the trees in the mulch bed, I could have had a picture of yours.
And I'm so
That's
sorry.
That's Douglas fir right there. That tree's about 100 years old.
Wow.
And if you look to the side, there's some little white flowers there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's actually a hardy orchid, which is a native plant.
Fantastic. That's ultra cool. And by the
That's
way,
called Spiranthes.
okay. And you continue to keep it in that container, right?
Yeah, it's actually, I've always heard that orchids are hard to reproduce from seed. This thing is just about a weed. It comes up in various pots around the back there.
You're welcome to send one over my way if you've got extras anytime.
Oh, sure, in the spring I'll ship you one over.
Okay, that
Oh
sounds.
yeah, put my name on the list too, please.
And
Okay,
by the way,
two.
if you have bonsai, and you know, these are, as you can see, it's a Douglas fir. It grows outdoors. You bring it in, you're going to kill it, right, Dan?
Oh yeah, yeah, 6 months at tops indoors.
Right, and it needs to be outside. Why is that? Because it needs to go into dormancy.
So, yeah, it evolved in a 4-season atmosphere, so the plant requires having the cold of the winter to shut down and go dormant and do what they actually do during the winter season. Indoors, it would be like if somebody put you in a room and they kept the lights on and they kept feeding you coffee and they said, you're not going to be able to go to sleep for a week and a half. We're just going to keep you awake for that whole time.
Yikes.
You're going to get weakened. You're going to get sick. You may die. And it'd be the same thing with having one of these plants indoors where it's warm. They're not going to be able to survive because they're not getting the quote unquote rest that they need.
All right, and so what you do, you don't just leave them unprotected like that. You put up something like this. This is your mulch pile, and all that green, I assume, are the tops of the different bonsai.
Yeah, there's a green one in the front, which is another Douglas fir. Up along the right-hand edge, there's a blue-colored one, which is juniper. The yellow one in the center is the fall color of a larch, and those leaves are going to be dropping pretty soon. So yeah, those are all different trees. And there's actually many more in there than what you can see because there's ones that are actually buried more.
Yeah, and that's how you overwinter your outside bonsai. You protect them, you give them a little shelter, but you leave them outdoors, and you're not watering or anything like that. You're just leaving it to nature, right?
Pretty much. The snow usually will keep them moist enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's how you take care and overwinter bonsai. Now,
the indoor trees are behind me.
Right. Okay, now what kind do you have indoors as your light fluctuates there?
Yeah.
Wait a second, let me pop up the, I can do this larger screen. Here we go. There we go. Ah, it's the Snipologist cam. There we go.
Yeah, there's a ficus over there on the sky. Right where my finger was just covering, that's a ficus.
Behind the white cyclamen. Is that what you're pointing to?
Yeah, that's a ficus, Chinese banyan type. Let's see. There's a right by my shoulder. There's a cherry of the Rio Grande del Sol, which is a type of a Eugenia. And next to that is a portulacaria or elephant bush. So that's my little indoor collection.
These are basic. Yeah. So these are basically tropicals, you know, and you treat them like you would a tropical, even though in some cases you've turned them into bonsai, right?
Yeah, these came into the house in the end of September.
Okay. Oh, so and you do like I do then. You take a lot of them outdoors and make them happy out in.
Oh yeah, they love the summer vacation outside.
Yeah, they do. My plants all thrive, and then I have to sort of get them through the winter indoors. I've just sent myself a picture. I'm hoping I can find it.
And while you're doing that, since we're talking holiday plants, the white cyclamen by your shoulder.
Well, let's see if I can get the right spot there. This is the original Christmas flower. The poinsettia is not. And this plant comes from the Middle East. It's native. The species itself is native there. It's called Cyclamen persicum. Persicum coming from Persia, which is now Iran. So that is the area that you would find it at. I don't know if you can see, but the foliage has beautiful modeling in it.
Yeah.
It looks very, very pretty. Even if it wasn't in flower, it would look nice. This is one of the miniature dwarf types.
What type of care do they need, Dan?
Basically African violet care. So you want to give it moderate light, like an east window type of a light, and water it when it gets a little bit dryish. There is a bulb in there, so if it does dry out totally, you can basically rejuvenate it from the bulb, but you really don't want it to get that far. A lot of times I'll have one that'll bloom for just a couple of months or more in the house. It just keeps producing more flowers from the bottom.
And you're more of a fan of those than you are of, now you said poinsettia. Some people say poinsettia. On this show, we say ponzetter. Okay.
Yeah.
Because then that way we don't have any questions about how to pronounce it. Ponzetter. You're not a huge fan of ponzetters, are you? Well, look at that. All right. No. I guess we got to go back.
Yes, I did bring one home to show.
Can't. All right. Well, let's pop the wide C. I was ready to pop something else up here, but let's hang on. Here we go. Boom.
This is your traditional Christmas flower.
Right.
Which has no connection to Christmas. It's native to the country of Mexico. It was popularized. It was brought in first by a U.S. ambassador to Mexico, whose last name was Poinsett, and thus Poinsettia is an honorarium to him.
Really?
It was then brought into the United States, and a couple of propagators in California got hold of it and did all the publicity and everything to make it into what we know today as the very popular plant. This is one of the newer cultivars. It's a bright hot pink, and the name is Poinsettia Queen.
Poinsettia Queen. Okay. And that's the kind people are going to buy. They like the solid colors. You can do all the fancy stuff, but I talked to Joe Hygen at Shady Hill Gardens out in Elburn years ago. We used to talk about this every year, and he'd say, yeah, you can put as many white and mottled colors and purples as you want out there, and people are going to buy the reds and probably the hot pinks as well, because they like the tradition of it.
Yeah, red is still the most popular color, but I would say that the other colors are starting to pick up pretty good.
Really? Okay.
The more golden color, and we got like an amber orange color, which sell pretty good. There's one with variegated leaves, very, very pale pink. So there's a lot of colors out there.
And by the way, folks, the red or the hot pink, and it looks red on my screen, but those are leaves. They're bracts. They're not actually flowers. Yeah. The flower is insignificant.
This thing here is a bract. This, I don't know if you can see it, but in the center here, there's some little tiny things. Those are the actual flowers. And when they get the little yellow on, that flower is open and doing its thing. The center ones will drop out eventually as the flower ages, because those flowers are done. But the bracts will stay around for a long, long time. Sometimes people have them until like June.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and folks, you can get your ponzetter to recolor the following year if you keep it alive over the summer and bring it in, but you have to do some similar things. You got to put it in a dark place and don't turn on the light, basically.
Yeah, it has to have 14 to 16 hours of darkness out of every 24-hour period. So you got to have it in complete darkness for a time, and then but you still have to bring it out during the day and give it light. You can't just leave it in the dark or it'll die.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough.
My opinion ain't that bad of a thing.
Like we
not
said,
being a favorite plant.
No, it's not your favorite. But I wanted to get back to, let's find the picture that I just popped up here to remind people that this is not an Amaryllis, really. I mean, it's called, that's how they're marketed. They're marketed as Amaryllis, but it is actually a hippeastrum. And I have several. In fact, I just got them back into the basement. I probably won't have mine till February, early March.
But again, they're nice looking at them then. And,
It is,
and
because
if you can stage them so that one's finishing and another's starting.
Yeah. At Christmas, there's so much going on anyway. My feeling is I don't need it. I got twinkle lights and whatever else. I don't need the hippeastrums there too. But they really come in handy in the dark of winter. So and with that, I put those outside. I take them into the basement. I let them dry out. I let the leaves die back, and then after they've rested for a few weeks, bring it up into some warmth, do some watering, and the stalks come up if I'm lucky, because once you do it year to year, you can usually get them to rebloom, but not always. I find that sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, if you put your Amaryllis outside for the summer, it gives it a lot more energy. And then in the late fall, you'll find the leaves will start to yellow. And at that time, you want to bring it in, keep it in a cool location, like in your basement maybe, and let it stay dry. And just check it every once in a while. And when you see a little sign of a little bit of new growth coming, then take it out and water it and put it in the light. My mom did that with them for many years.
Yeah. And
mine, all the foliage is yellowed and they're ready to go in the basement right now.
But I find, and we need to let you go here in a second, I find that the foliage sometimes lasts a long time. It stays green for a long time down there in the basement. So I'm waiting for it all to die back.
Oh, it should die back pretty soon.
Oh, it will. It's been down there for weeks. Dan Kosta, there we go. There's some holiday tips on plants, and hope you learned something new today if you were watching this, Dan. Oh, by the way, you got to tell us, what are the 3 types of cacti that, there's the Christmas cactus, the Thanksgiving cactus, and the Easter cactus, but what are the scientific names of those?
Well, the Thanksgiving cactus would be zygocactus. The Christmas cactus is Schlumbergia, and the Thanksgiving cactus or the Easter cactus is Ripsolidopsis.
Gesundheit.
And they're not really cactus, are they?
Oh yeah, they're cactus. They're true cactus.
Are they real cactus? Okay.
Are they?
Yeah, but they are jungle cactus that actually would live on branches of trees in the rainforest.
Forest cactus.
So not all cacti are arid plants.
Right. There are cactuses that grow in the tropics, in the jungle, as epiphytes.
Again,
that's what the Christmas cactus is.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure there is a word cacti, so I suppose we'll look that up and figure it out. Dan Kosta
So hopefully by February or March show, we'll be watching this one bloom.
Well,
following your advice.
Right. Follow the advice, and then you bring it out. Show us if you've got some blooms on it, Peggy. That'd be great. Dan, always a pleasure to have you. Go to Vern Goers Greenhouse in Hinsdale, Illinois, and you can talk to Dan in person and harass him there because he's there 4 days a week.
Yep, and I'm known as the horticulturist, not the snipologist.
Well, you are I will say that you are a horticulturist. I just thought, in honor of the bonsai, I would use the Snipologist title. Great seeing you, Dan. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday, and thank you for going out of your comfort zone and joining us on your propped up cell phone. It worked great.
Have a great
Good.
Thanksgiving, Dan.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving
You
to
too,
you.
Peggy and Mike,
All right.
and to Kathleen as well.
And Legata and Basil the dog. So,
Of course.
it's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Meteorologist Rick DiMaio is next.
From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks at blazing-star.com.
I'm Morgan Freeman. I'm not a doctor, but I trust science. And I'm told that for some reason people trust me. So here I am to say, I trust science and I got the vaccine. If you trust me, you'll get the vaccine. In math, it's called the distributive property. In people, it's called taking care of one another. Get the vaccine. Help make our world a safe place for us to enjoy ourselves again. Please.
Andrew at Urban Greens. Hey, this is Joel. We are an indoor hydroponics farm in the Twin Cities. We grow lettuce, greens, and herbs and deliver them year-round. And for the last year or so, we've been growing with Happy Leaf LEDs.
Yeah, before that we were using LED light bars from some of the big guys, Philips, GE. We ran into Poly a little over a year ago at a market outside Chicago, and since then we've been on the Happy Leaf train.
Yep, and a year in, we are extremely pleased with how they perform for us. We have some rainbow chard here growing. We get excellent growth. The growth is quick, leaves are thick, plants are sturdy, and Happy Leaf LEDs have worked well across all of our plant varieties.
Yeah, we use them for our seedlings as well, and that's honestly where we've seen some of the biggest improvements. Seedlings under Happy Leaf are coming in full and thick, thicker stems than what we've seen under the other lights we've used.
Sorry about that. I was loading.
There was a
in-
lot of clicking going on.
Yeah, a lot of clicking and like woohoo. And there he is, meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Good morning, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Peg. Hey, Mike.
So here we are. We're about to hit Thanksgiving, and in meteorological terms, are we pretty much where we normally are at this time of year?
Well, if you consider going from degrees on Monday to 60 degrees on, actually 30 degrees Tuesday morning to 60 degrees Wednesday morning to back to 30 degrees Thursday morning. That's kind of typical for this time of the year. Very, very wide swings in temperature, very wide swings in humidity as well. If you recall earlier this week, we had dew points in the upper 50s, which was really remarkable and kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened, back in 2013 when we had that massive tornado outbreak. We had temperatures in the 60s and dew points in the lower season. This system had all the earmarks of what occurred back in 2013 outside the fact that it just didn't have enough deep moisture on the front side of it. But other than that, it reminds us of the fact that the dynamics in the atmosphere once you get into the second half of November are very, very different from what you have in the first half of November.
Yeah. In fact, you were talking about that moisture, and if you look at this is the observed 7-day rainfall. So it just didn't have enough to work with, did it?
No, and what's really interesting is this is a great chart that shows you that lake effect rain and snow was the dominant precipitation maker. I mean, if you look downstream of Lake Superior, downstream of northern Lake Michigan, downstream of southern Lake Michigan, and then you go downstream of both Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and even some of the higher mountains of northern New York and also Vermont. This is about as good as it gets from a standpoint of how the Great Lakes this time of the year add moisture to the atmosphere and results in some heavy amounts of precipitation. We also had some massive flooding rains down in southern Florida that had nearly 6 inches of rain in and around the Miami area, and you can see that on the map. In addition to that, they also had massive flooding due to the fact that we had a full moon a couple of nights ago. So the high tides were in, the heavy rains were in, and once again, they had incredible flooding down in that particular area. And of course, it was noted by the mayor of Miami that we needed money from the infrastructure bill to again continue some of the improvements in the sewer system in the southern areas of Florida due to not only high tides when you have a full moon, but high tides when you have a full moon and also heavy rain. So that kind of little blip down there in southern Florida kind of went unnoticed nationally, but people who follow the weather in greater detail like myself noticed that particular event was one of the longer term problems that people in southern Florida are dealing with basically every month when you get heavy rain and you get the full moon. In addition to that, again, we talked about 8 to 10 inches of rain possible in parts of the Pacific Northwest, and that exactly happened. Northwest areas of Oregon, the areas around Olympic National Park, and also around parts of northwestern Washington east of Seattle. In addition to that, catastrophic flooding in areas of British Columbia, and I shared that with you early in the week, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the worst flooding that we've ever seen there, without a doubt.
I'm going to tell you right now, I had a bunch of photos ready to go here, and I'm going to try to bring up just a couple of them before, but they disappeared on me and I won't even go into why. It was a technical thing, but just amazing photos from the Pacific Northwest. And, and again, this is a place where people are used to a lot of rain, but certainly not the kind of rain that they got this past week.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and try to find that link as well. But what was really amazing about that, a lot of people have to remember, but that area was impacted by the massive flooding, or not the massive flooding, but the heat wave, and also the wildfires that occurred early in the year. And whenever you get something like that happening, and then you follow it up literally like almost 2 months later with the possibility of heavy rain that falls literally almost 3 months of rain in 3 weeks, you're going to get not only flooding but also mudslides as well. Really remarkable about that is, again, I think it kind of went largely unnoticed here, in the United States, because it's Canada, maybe, I don't know. But I wish the Weather Channel would have done a little more with it. It's just over, it's literally just over the U.S. border there. And I did find a link, and I am sending it to you now. But what's really amazing about it is you had mudslides in areas that never had mudslides to that degree before. And again, the mudslides were a combination of the fact that you had the heavy rain, but also all of the vegetation that was burnt up by the wildfires. There was nothing for the soil to hold on to. So the first question you say, is this an extreme climactic event? Yes. The next question is, could this be somewhat related to a more changeable and more variable climate? The answer is yes. The next question is, how do you point that out? And that was, again, this incredibly warm pool of water in the North Pacific that really, I think, overexcited these atmospheric rivers that you get in that part of the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. So an atmospheric river is basically a flow of moisture that can easily be 2,000 to 3,000 miles long. It gets basically just caught up in the jet stream. But the water temperature was about 4 to 5 degrees above normal where the atmospheric river was developing. And because of that, you had dew point temperatures in the low to mid 60s as opposed to dew point temperatures in the mid 50s. It's also interesting to point out that during these heavy rain events in British Columbia, both Seattle and Portland, Mike and Peg, this is really something that I went, wow, I didn't realize that, had record high temperatures. And their record high temperature was like 65. And I'm like, 65 in the middle of November for Seattle and Portland? Yeah, that's actually pretty warm for them. And the only way you get that is not with sunshine. This was occurring when it was raining out. So when you have a record high temperature when it's raining out, wow is the way to answer that. It was because you had super high levels of humidity coming all the way in from the subtropics, not the subtropics, 5 degrees north latitude, which is subtropical Columbia, and it moved into this area, and you had 2 to 3 times the amount of rain. You see the cattle, or the cows rather, being rescued. That area is literally like the dairy capital of Canada, out of maybe southern areas of Ontario, because it's very, very flat between the coast and the mountains. And because it never gets cold and you get a lot of rain, you have perfect conditions for dairy farms. So again, this was one of those events. If you look at British Columbia, the amount of heat that they had, or I shouldn't say the amount of heat, the magnitude of heat that they had, and the amount of fatalities that they had, and then you get on top of this heavy rain and mudslides, their weather has been nothing but chaotic, literally for the last 4 to 5 to almost 6 months. And I think it's still going kind of largely unnoticed here in the United States.
And you're looking at this photo. RV trailers are burning in a storage yard in British Columbia.
Right, Abbotsford.
This is just crazy, and it's almost as if the rain caused the fire. But I guess what happened is you couldn't get to the trailers because of the flooding. I'm not sure, but that's just
I'm not too sure exactly what caused the fire initially. But clearly not being able to get to them made the fire worse. Is kind of 2 ways at it. But when you look at some of the other photographs in those areas, what I noticed was also an enormous number of trees that were largely unleafed or most likely were burned due to the wildfires and never got a chance to kind of grow back. So again, if this would have been in Washington State, this would have been all over the news. But it was in British Columbia, so it was kind of like, well, it's there and it's in Canada. But this is not far from the United States. And this kind of goes to show you that these kind of high impact events, which are more so due to a highly variable climate, is happening more and more. So it'll be to see what the overall cost is to the economy of British Columbia from a standpoint of their heat, the wildfires, the deaths from lack of air conditioning, and then now you have this. I mean, it's one thing after another. So these are the kind of things that would sometimes happen in Northern California. But remember, everything kind of got pushed northward about 500 miles this year, which is one of the reasons why you had wetness in Arizona and Southern California, and you had all the heat across areas of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. So again, it's one of these things where people will say, oh, well, it wasn't that bad in California. All you're really doing is you're taking everything and you just kind of shifted it north about 5 to 8 degrees. That's one of the ways of making the Earth look a lot bigger when you take something like that and you shift it up 5 to 8 degrees latitude. It's not that far when you look at it from a magnitude size of the Earth.
And I had about 17 of those photos lined up, and more of farmers leading cattle and cows in a. I don't know that any of them drowned. All of the photos seem to be rather positive. They say that led this cow to safety or whatever, so that's a good thing. And that's the last photo I had. I'm sorry, I'm sort of editing these things on the fly, but you can you can see the river overflowing its banks there, and just so much water. Wasn't able to crop it the way I wanted to. But again, just incredible amounts of rain out there.
Yeah,
just unbelievable.
This was catastrophic. And then in addition to that, there's many photos that show bridges, highways, railroads that were completely washed away. That's not something you go back there and you rebuild in 2 months. I mean that's a year to 2 years out that you fix something like
Plus
that.
the funding.
Plus the funding, yeah. I mean, whenever you're in a pandemic, it takes so much more effort to get this type of environment, back on track. So when you hear about all the different things that have gone on with the infrastructure bill that finally was passed, and then hopefully the Build Back Better bill as well, these are all things that are much more needed now than they've ever been needed before. But again, 2 events. Think about it, Mike, on opposite sides of the continent, Southeast Florida and British Columbia. I really think they kind of went largely unnoticed here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, coming up then, I believe this is a Sunday forecast map. We were getting a little rain just before the show started, although it looks like it's clearing up.
Now the sun's out.
Yeah.
I have sunshine outside.
Yeah, and Peg, you're absolutely right. I mean, right now it's sunny basically from about Rockford to Janesville and west all the way to about the Mississippi River. So we'll have a fair amount of sun. And I mentioned this to Rebecca. We went downtown on Friday just to get a bite to eat and just to get out. And then we actually went to the Adler Planetarium on Saturday, thinking that it was open, and it was not open. I thought, but anyway, just going downtown and being at the end there, drive there by the Adler Planetarium, looking west and looking at the city. It looked beautiful. I mean, we had a little bit of sun yesterday. We had a little bit of cloudiness. It did clear out a little bit in the afternoon. And I said to her, this is what November looks like. You get a lot of trees that don't have their leaves anymore. So you begin to see the structure of the trees. I think there's nothing cooler than seeing the framework of bare trees. It's actually quite beautiful. And then you see the leftover, the maples and some of the last bit of trees that still have their leaves on them. There's not many. But it seems like the leaves are on the trees a little bit later this year than in previous years. Some of the grass areas around Grand Park are still kind of green. We made it to the low close to 50, low 50s today. This is not bad for November. And when you look at the fact that we're going to get really cold tonight, this time tomorrow we'll probably have temperatures maybe about 25 degrees colder as that second cold front comes through. But as you can see, the way that big high comes in, that's not a high pressure system coming in the North Pole. That's one that's basically sliding from the Rocky Mountains eastward. And that warm front out across South Dakota and Dakota begins to move eastbound, and that warms us up during the day on Tuesday. So 50 the next 3 or 4 hours, but still sunshine after this rain passes off to the east. Pretty cold tomorrow. But again, that reminds us that late November, in the second half of November, I mean, all bets are off for getting any really extended warm weather this time of the year. You're pretty much, I always say once you get past the 20th of November, it's like wintertime around here, but it early taste of winter. So we'll get a little bit of a warm up on Tuesday, mid to upper 40s, and maybe 50 Wednesday with maybe a little bit of rain, but there's still nothing coming in from the Arctic. So this is a very, very progressive pattern, up and down weather from a standpoint of temperature. So you'll get cool, you'll get warm, but because it's not really getting with the Gulf of Mexico, there's no storms coming in from the Southern Rockies or Texas or Oklahoma. Any wetness that is really just from high clouds. So even that rain on Wednesday is maybe 1/10 of an inch. And even though there's another cooler air coming in during the day on Thursday, it's not pure Arctic air. It's more like polar air. We go from upper 40s to near 50 to maybe the mid 30s. You can already see another system developing over the West Rockies that comes through. And by next Friday, you already see another warm front come through. And because there's no snow in any of the areas pretty much from eastern Colorado all the way to almost Manitoba. The ground is dry, and as long as the ground is dry this time of the year, you get downslope warming, you could be in the 60s out there. In fact, I just read that many of the ski resorts from Jackson Hole to Big Sky, south to Steamboat and Aspen Basin, or not Aspen Basin, Arapahoe Basin, are not opening up this week. Typically, all of those ski resorts are open up 100%, but we've been having these mild spells, very progressive patterns coming in off the Pacific Ocean. People say, yeah, but Rick, you said La Nina is going to bring us more of a dip with the jet stream coming in from the north and west. It will eventually do that, and it has done that, but the bottom of the Pacific Ocean still somewhat above normal, and any systems that come through, the precipitation is not lasting any long period of time, so they've not been able to open up. So this is, again, one of those things when you look back at how economies have to plan for highly variable weather conditions at the beginning of the year. Those ski resorts, which typically are doing banner business for Thanksgiving, I've been out in Arapahoe Basin and Winter Park in Thanksgiving, and it's usually packed. But this year, they're not even open.
Wow.
That's a big deal for them. And clearly, coming out of the pandemic, they were hoping for some better news to start off the season.
It's fascinating. Watch those high pressure systems, and I'm hearing my feedback. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're hearing it too.
Yeah, well, and there it goes away. See, it comes and it goes. And then you watch the high pressure systems, and then they go across the country. And because of the clockwise movement, so as it comes in to Chicago, you watch the weather come in from the northwest, and then then the high pressure goes by, and then now it's coming up from the southwest, and as you say, progressive, one after another, like that across the middle of the country. And you can predict that, okay, yeah, Tuesday's going to be warm. Oh, Wednesday's going to get cool. Thursday's going to be warm up again, maybe a little rain. So it's very interesting to see it that clearly.
One of the things that meteorologists love to do, the ones who forecast, long term, is they look at what's called the wave pattern across the globe. Typically, anytime you have a 3 or 4 wave pattern, meaning that you'll have one wave over North America, you'll have another wave over Western Europe, you'll have another wave over Eastern Asia, and then you'll have another wave over the North Pacific Ocean. Whenever you have like a 4-wave pattern or less, the weather lasts for a longer period of time because long waves tend to move slower, and they tend to tap into either more moisture on the front side or more cooler weather on the back side. Right now, our wave pattern, Mike and Peg, is a 7-wave pattern. So if you would look down on the North Pole and look at the jet stream that goes all the way around the globe, there's actually 7 waves. And each one of those waves that move around bring you weather on the front side and weather on the back side. And because 7 waves this time of the year means highly progressive but variable in nature of a minimal impact, meaning that you'll get really warm and really cold, but it doesn't have a chance to pick up moisture off the ocean to a great degree, or moisture off the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf of Mexico in any great degree. You get weather like this. Think about the last time we had like a real good soaking rain with low clouds, drizzle, and fog. We haven't had that. So this is a pattern that is kind of typical of mid to late November. As soon as you begin to get into a much shorter wave pattern or shorter wavelength, that's when your weather basically will stay the same for about 3 or 4 days. And I personally, I kind of like this stuff right now. It's not,
nice. Yeah.
Not super. Yeah. It's not bad. I mean, you walk outside and people say it's cold out. I'm like, it's November in Chicago. The fact that you could walk 3 or 4 blocks on Michigan Avenue and enjoy, the lights tonight, and it's going to be cool, but it's not going to be freezing cold. I'm all for it.
I was trying to describe this to a friend the other day. I was saying, well, it was a great day. It was like low 40s, sunny. I was outside. It was really nice weather. It felt great. And he was arguing that, oh, it's cold. I went, no. This is really good weather. This is nice for November.
Yeah, you know what,
Well,
Mike?
that's the context, though. The context for November versus August.
Well, and the other thing is he had sat outside to have lunch. Well, I'm sure he got really cold. I wouldn't have done that in 40-degree weather myself. So that was the difference. That was
Or bundle up.
That was his context.
Yeah. By the way, I was walking jacks on Canals golf course. I think I texted Peg on Monday. There were people playing golf before the rain hit. And then when I was driving downtown yesterday, there were people playing golf at Waveland Golf Course. And part of the reason is that the ground is kind of dry. We haven't had that much rain recently. And in an odd way, the grass is greener now than it was in August. I mean, I keep saying, I look outside, I'm like, grass is green. And when you get, when you get that low sun angle with I was walking my dog yesterday, and all the different colors and the different shapes of the leaves on the grass, it just looked pretty cool. Is that going to last another week? Probably not. But again, that you can take advantage of what Mother Nature gives you. I'm all for it.
Okay, well, let's.
You find a sheltered place outside with sun and no wind, and it's going to be gorgeous to sit there for a while.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Pig. Speaking of things to do during this time of the year when you want some comfort, we ate at a lovely cafe, restaurant place, if you want to call it that. It's 2000. No, it was. I'm trying to think of the address again. Yeah, 2015 Street, 1 block north of Armitage.
We're not getting any of this address. No. I'm just saying you're breaking up, and every time you give the address, it's just part
Halstead and Armitage. You said, right?
Yeah, it's like a half block north of Halstead and Armitage. The restaurant is called the Blue Pond Farmhouse, and literally they do all sustainable foods. I think it'd be great on the show one day.
Okay.
I was talking to the owner. They've been there for about 3 years, and they have a map showing all the different farms, Wisconsin and Illinois and Michigan, where they get their food from. The most unbelievable Cobb salad, and it was all from local farm, and I didn't get into any sort of weather discussion, blah blah blah. But I always like to be able to support places like that. So it's the Blue Pond Farmhouse on Halstead, just 1 block north of Armitage. So hopefully, if I mention it a few more times, I'll get a free Cobb salad.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. All right. How about a free forecast for now?
Yeah. And by the way, this forecast is handcrafted. How about that? So clouds this morning, sun coming in very quickly behind this leading edge of a cold air mass, which is of polar origin. So we'll probably be in the upper 40s to probably low 50s up until about maybe 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. Will pick up, but again, that's normal for this time of the year. Overnight low by tomorrow morning, probably about 25. So it's going to be pretty cold, pretty windy. Highs tomorrow only about 30 to 32. So tomorrow's going to be pretty darn cold, but we warm right back up we warm right back up, almost 20 degrees colder, right, than today, Peg, especially the feel-like temperature. But mid-40 on Tuesday, close to 50 with clouds and maybe a little bit of rain on Wednesday, but good weather for anybody who's doing any traveling in and around the Midwest. And then dry weather for Thanksgiving, but again, seasonable temperatures in the low 40s, and it should remain that way right through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week. Nothing in the way of any big cold and nothing in the way of any big snows for probably the next 2 weeks, and it looks as we mentioned before, this highly progressive 6 to 7 pattern, probably through the first week of December at this point.
All right.
When are you seeing snow?
What's that, Peg?
When are you seeing snow in the long range?
You know what? Sometimes when you have these progressive patterns like this, you're able to build up a reservoir of colder air across the northern latitudes from like 60 degrees north. That's always one of the things when you go zonal flow for a while. It builds up, but you still need something to bring it down. And we're not going to see that with any blocking pattern over the Atlantic, nor are we going to see it with anything coming in from the Pacific Ocean from like an ex-typhoon. So to answer that question, I don't know. I don't see anything within the next 3 weeks that's going to bring us any strong little mid-latitude cyclone that's going to be able to do something that's going to produce any large-scale snowstorm. So I would love to give an answer, but at this point, I don't see anything like that.
Well, it makes it good for caroling outdoors when we have these kinds of temperatures.
Yes, it does.
And not too much
You're
rain.
not you're a warm robin, right?
That's right. We're a toasty robin. All right.
Hey, I brought these, so I got to use them.
Oh, she's got the jingle bells. All right.
There you go.
All right,
jingle
Rick.
all the way.
We'll continue in the zonal pattern, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be zonal. So when someone says, "How are you?" Go, "I'm zonal, man."
And
have a great Thanksgiving, Rick.
Thanks. You too. Peace, love, and happiness, everybody.
All right, and I just need to throw that in for Rick for that. Okay, and I think that kind of does it. So we get to do this. And thank all of our terrific guests today. Amy Dahl from Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, Chris Benda, the Illinois Botanizer. Then, of course, there is Dan Kosta, the Snipologist. But yes, he's also a horticulturist. If you go to Vern Goers Greenhouse in Hinsdale, they will say that's our horticulturist. Also, thanks to Kathleen, who's on location but still working. Lagata the cat, who disappeared. Basil the dog, who is remarkably quiet. I think that's kind of it until next time.
Well, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Oh,
everyone.
right. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Until next time, go green or
go home.
Stadler?
Yeah, what?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.